There was a time in my life when I believed money moved because of unseen forces. If someone prospered, it was because something spiritual favored them. If someone struggled, it was because something spiritual blocked them. That's what I was taught. But after I left that world and began rebuilding my life with clarity and discipline, I noticed something that unsettled me. The same people who blamed spiritual attacks for being broke repeated the same financial behaviors year after year. Impulse decisions, emotional spending, avoiding hard conversations, resenting structure. And every time the consequences showed up, they called it warfare. Let me be very direct with you. Most long-term financial struggle is not caused by a curse. It is caused by patterns, invisible habits, unexamined beliefs, emotional triggers tied to money. And until those are confronted, prayer alone won't change the outcome. In my former life, I saw something clearly. If you want to keep someone financially unstable, you don't need to attack their bank account. You influence their decisions. You distort their relationship with discipline. You make them chase feelings instead of building systems. Because instability doesn't start in the wallet, it starts in the mind. I had to face that truth myself. There was a season where I kept asking God for breakthrough while ignoring the small daily habits that were sabotaging me. And the breakthrough never came, not because God was withholding, but because I was inconsistent. In this message, I'm going to expose the real spiritual reason many people stay broke, and it has nothing to do with dark forces and everything to do with alignment. If you're tired of repeating the same financial cycle, if you're frustrated with barely getting ahead, stay with me. Because once you see the pattern clearly, you can break it permanently. And freedom begins with awareness. After I left my old life, I expected finances to improve instantly. I was praying, I was reading scripture, I was trying to rebuke lack, but nothing changed. And that's when I realized something painful. My income problem was actually an identity problem. In the circles I used to move in, people believed money responded to rituals and timing. But in reality, money responds to value, discipline, and stewardship. And if your internal identity is unstable, your finances will reflect that instability. Let me explain what I mean. If deep down you believe you are bad with money, you will unconsciously prove it. If you believe wealthy people are greedy, you will sabotage opportunities to grow. If you secretly feel unworthy of financial stability, you will find ways to lose what you gain. This is not mystical. It is psychological and spiritual alignment. For years, I carried a poverty mindset disguised as humility. I told myself, money isn't important. But what I really meant was, I don't trust myself to handle it. And that belief shaped every decision I made. I avoided budgeting because structure felt restrictive. I avoided long-term planning because commitment felt heavy. I avoided financial conversations because exposure felt threatening. So every time money came in, it left just as quickly, not because of a curse, because of identity. Here is the truth most people never heard. Your bank account eventually mirrors your beliefs. If you see yourself as unstable, your finances will be unstable. If you see yourself as disciplined, your finances will slowly reflect that discipline. The spiritual reason many people stay broke is not an attack. It's misalignment between their identity and their habits. Until you see yourself as a steward, responsible, capable, intentional, you will keep operating reactively. And reactive living keeps you in survival mode. When I finally shifted my identity from struggling to steward, my decisions changed. I stopped asking, how much can I spend? I started asking, how can I manage this wisely? That one shift altered everything. In the next chapter, I'm going to expose the second hidden reason people remain financially stuck, and it has to do with emotion, not income. There was another pattern I had to confront, and this one was harder than identity. It was emotion. In my former life, I watched how easily people could be influenced through emotional highs and lows. If you wanted someone unstable, you didn't remove their income. You destabilized their emotions. Because unstable emotions create unstable decisions. When I examined my own financial history, I saw something uncomfortable. I didn't spend because I needed things. I spent because I needed relief. Stressful day. I deserved something. Feeling overlooked. I bought something. Feeling behind in life. I upgraded something. Every purchase carried a hidden emotional motive. And here's the dangerous part. Emotional spending feels justified in the moment. It feels small. It feels harmless. It feels like self-care. But repeated over months and years, it quietly drains momentum. You don't notice the pattern because each decision feels isolated. But it isn't isolated. It's connected to your nervous system. When you are stressed, your brain looks for quick reward. When you feel insecure, you look for something that temporarily elevates your status. When you feel powerless, spending gives you a short illusion of control. An illusion is expensive. This is why many people pray for financial breakthrough but remain in financial cycles. They are fighting external lack while feeding internal instability. I had to learn discipline at the emotional level, not just the budgeting level. Before buying, I started asking one question. What am I feeling right now? If the answer was boredom, stress, insecurity, or comparison, I paused. Not because spending is evil, but because emotional decisions compound, and compounding works both ways. Discipline compounds. Impulse compounds too. The spiritual issue underneath chronic financial struggle is often this: a lack of emotional self-control. And self-control is not restrictive, it is empowering. When you master your emotions, your decisions stabilize. When your decisions stabilize, your finances begin to follow. In the next chapter, I'm going to reveal the third hidden reason people remain financially stuck, and it has nothing to do with money at all. There is one pattern that kept me stuck longer than anything else. It wasn't identity, it wasn't emotion, it was avoidance. Avoiding looking at my bank balance, avoiding hard financial conversations, avoiding long-term planning, avoiding responsibility when I already knew the answer. Avoidance feels harmless because it is quiet. It doesn't feel dramatic. It doesn't feel reckless. In fact, it feels like relief. Let me bring this all together. If you've felt stuck financially, if you've prayed, fasted, asked God for increase, and still found yourself repeating the same cycle, listen carefully. The breakthrough is not dramatic, it is disciplined. When I finally stopped blaming external forces and started confronting internal patterns, something shifted, not overnight, not magically, but steadily, and steady is powerful. I stopped asking God to remove lack. I started asking Him to strengthen my discipline. I stopped rebuking the symptoms. I started restructuring my systems. Because here is the truth that changed my life. Desire does not create stability. Discipline does. You can desire wealth and still overspend. You can desire freedom and still avoid responsibility. You can desire breakthrough and still sabotage progress. Desire is emotional. Discipline is structural, and structure produces results, even when emotions fluctuate. I began doing very small, unexciting things consistently, tracking every expense, planning before spending, saving before upgrading, investing in skills instead of appearances. At first, it felt slow, almost boring, but boredom is not the enemy. Inconsistency is. Over months, the anxiety I used to feel around money started disappearing. Not because I had become rich overnight, but because I had become stable internally. Stability creates confidence. Confidence creates better decisions. Better decisions compound into real change. And that is the real spiritual shift. It's maturity. Financial freedom is less about how much you earn and more about how consistently you manage what you already have. When your identity aligns with stewardship, when your emotions are disciplined, when avoidance is replaced with ownership, when desire is supported by systems, the cycle breaks, not because something mystical lifted, but because you grew. And growth is powerful. Let me speak directly to you. If you are always broke, do not immediately assume you are attacked. Ask yourself, where is my identity misaligned? Where are my emotions influencing my spending? Where am I avoiding responsibility? Where am I relying on desire instead of discipline? Those questions will free you faster than fear ever could. The real spiritual reason many people stay broke is not an external force. It is internal instability. But the moment you take ownership, you take authority. And authority over your habits, will produce results that prayer alone cannot substitute. You are not cursed. You are capable. And the discipline you build today will create the stability you've been praying for tomorrow. That is the path. And that is how you break the cycle permanently.